Okay, I'm gonna have to rush, I guess, a bit, but so I built my presentation in Sway, and it's supposed to like whatever, I forget the term, but it's like adjust to the different browsers. But this is in Zoom, so it might look a bit wonky to people on Zoom. Uh, anyway, so for my cover, I shouted out the theme of the conference. I added an extra finger to this image. I did that in Paint. I didn't use AI, so yeah, MS Paint. Um, so I'm not sure if the guy from Clarivate's still here, but um, yeah, basically, so my presentation, I was just sort of thinking about the barriers that I experience in my job is like between like software and everyone in the library. And um, so the past like 3 years, it's been I've been sort of administrating Alma and then before that SharePoint. And so this is just sort of the insights from that experience. And yeah, so libraries sort of have these goals to make themselves sort of open and accessible and like provide things to people. So I just sort of want to discuss how technology gets in the way of achieving that. And this is sort of felt acutely switching from like one system to another. And so at McMaster, it was switching from Sierra to Alma. And then in the past, it was sort of, or whatever. I worked in corporations where it was like switching from using File Explorer to SharePoint or OpenText. And so I'm using sort of my useless degree of like cultural studies and women's studies to provide that insight into administering technology. Um, and so that's an image from Don Norman's Design of Everyday Things. At U of T, I took courses on user experience design as well. Uh, Yeah, so in Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto, which is from like the early 90s, we can sort of get some insight into the relationship between people and machines. And she says the ideological charge question of what counts as daily activity, as experience, can be approached by exploring the cyborg image. Feminists have recently claimed that women are given to dailiness, that women are more somehow more sustained daily life. So it's not legible on my screen. One sec. That women somehow more than men can sustain daily life and have a privileged epistemological position, potentially, that there's compelling aspects to this claim, one that makes visible, unvalued female activity and names it as such, the ground of life. But the ground of life, what about all the ignorance of women, all the exclusions and failures in knowledge and skill? What about men's access to daily competence, to knowledge, knowing how to build things and take them apart to play? And so related to technology, sort of whatever, me as like a man, I get this privileged position of like, you know what technology is. And I've gotten a lot of the roles that I've been in because of this position. Um, and the daily activities of women, like cataloging or sort of in the past, like transcribing catalog records into computer systems in like the 80s and 90s, was sort of seen as like routine tasks that are sort of, we can automate these things, we can get rid of them and replace them. Um, and so in the past, we were sort of thinking about replacing things with automation or with robots and whatever. And so at McMaster, we had sort of a great call of catalogers in the early 2000s, and Stacy in her keynote yesterday sort of hinted at this experience. And I don't know how like ubiquitous this is or not, but many sort of technical services staff were just replaced by like vendor records, and now we're sort of dealing with the consequences of that, trying to fix those records. We have sort of brief records, millions of duplicates, and sort of useless primary identifiers. And instead of like worrying about how to fix these things, we're trying to automate more and having sort of less labor involved. We sort of already have garbage to begin with, so using AI is not just going to sort of fix and repair these things. And the reason I sort of mentioned, like, I wonder if this is like just local to like Ontario. So I went to the University of Victoria for their Digital Humanities Summer Institute and peeked in their staff area, and their technical services department was like massive. They had like half a floor still, which is what I hear other Canadian or like Ontario universities used to have. So anyways, I don't know, I can't speak sort of universally about other universities' experiences, but from what I hear about Ontario schools, it seems like catalogers and this sort of tedious work just isn't valued. And now sort of with AI and sort of these new systems and discoveries, we're sort of thinking about like how can we further automate like searching, and chatbots are really popular. And just looking at sort of non-library context, these chatbots often just sort of point you at like spots on the website. It doesn't really help you answer complex questions, and to replace humans with these chatbots is often leads to like frustrating experiences with insurance companies, banks, online shopping, etc. And to do these in our library search environments, which are more complicated than these like shopping environments or banks or whatever in some instances, is doesn't seem very wise to me. And so Haraway in her Cyborg Manifesto continues that taking responsibility for the social relations of science and technology means refusing an anti-science metaphysics, a demonology of technology, and embracing a skillful task of reconstructing the boundaries of daily life. And so this sort of quote, we can sort of think about how we can use technology with the relations that we want to sort of value and enhance. And so whatever, looking at strategic priorities for Clarivate, this image isn't loading. The first thing that showed up for me was like, move forward faster. And if you look at sort of library strategic priorities and McMaster's, we've got like inclusive excellence. And I thought these two were sort of like nice oppositions to how the software development sort of opposes what we think of in working in libraries. Sorry, I guess it's not loading. It's like, anyways. Okay. I have some more specific examples of like the complications that we've had transitioning to Alma. They're also pictures. I can just describe them now since the presentation seems frozen. There's like an app called Item Updater. The description is like, this is an item or an app to item update your items, and that's it. Like one simple sentence, and people get stuck there. So then they have like a GitHub page and a App Center page that also just have the same description. The only way you can get more info about this app is like going to the issues on their GitHub page. And then finally, people ask questions like, this doesn't work for me. How am I supposed to do this? And there you can get like the actual instructions on how to use the thing. But the app is just sort of like thinking, if we just throw this at people, they'll do it. And I know how to use this. So therefore, you know, you can figure it out. That's not really like working with the relations of librarians and how they do their job. And then sort of with SharePoint in the past, it was like really unusable. The newer versions are much better. But the previous ones, they had like basically everyone doing cataloging, and it takes a very specific kind of person to like cataloging. So most people hated older versions of SharePoint, and I spent a lot of time sort of dealing with IT staff that hated SharePoint, and then actual like laborers that used SharePoint that hated it. Being in that position was just like, whatever, why are we even implementing this technology? But no one sort of thought about that. They just sort of said this is like the going thing, so let's just use it. And it put everyone in sort of an uncomfortable, useless spot. Anyways, so that's the end. Here's your whatever. It's lunch.